After dropping into the ring a little over a week ago, Jupiter's Legacy has already landed itself a place as one of the best Netflix originals to date, coming in hot with an interwoven plot filled into the brim with twists and turns. And with everything that the series has offered fans, it's really no wonder that Season 2 has become one of the most anticipated installments of the future. But what did the showrunners want us to take away from the ending of Season 1? And does this give us any clues on what we should expect from Season 2? Well, whether you're a fan of the Union or just want to know more about one of the most popular superhero shows on Netflix, you come to the right place, as we're about to explain the Season 1 ending of Jupiter's Legacy, as well as what this means for Season 2. So strap yourselves in and get ready for some theorizing, as things are about to get interesting. But before we get into it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss out on any of the new videos that we post. The prospects of a second installment. As of right now, Netflix has yet to renew Jupiter's Legacy for a second season, but fans of the show shouldn't cry just yet, as the series was only released on the streaming platform a little over a week ago. And we're well aware the global health situation has kind of a special effect on the scheduling of Netflix shows over the last year, with even the popular Bridgerton taking a full month before being confirmed by the streaming giant as renewed for a few extra seasons. As such, we can probably expect a confirmation from Netflix somewhere mid-June, with the release date of this second installment likely being kept on ice until both filming and post-production of the season have been promptly completed. Once more, we can thank the global health situation for this little change in scenery, with the various rules and regulations in place to curb the spread already being responsible for a number of delays across the platform. And since Netflix would rather hold off on an announcement than announce a date that is at some point delayed, this is just a practice we'll have to get used to. It's clearly not just in the case of Jupiter's Legacy, with fans of franchises such as Stranger Things and The Witcher still waiting for the release dates of Season 4 and 2 respectively. And as if the insane viewership of the show wasn't enough to put some fans at ease, we have another piece of information that pretty much guarantees the continuation of the franchise. You see, Jupiter's Legacy is based on the successful graphic novel of the same name as written by Mark Millar. This means that Netflix had to first purchase the rights to the property from Millar himself, which the platform apparently did for a couple of tens of millions of dollars. Would they have done this if they only had one season in the pipeline? We very much doubt it. And since the series was not received dreadfully, we can very much guarantee that a second season will be announced in at least a month's time. Season 1 ending explained. So now that we know that a second season is definitely within the future of the streaming giant, let's take a look at things we learned throughout Season 1 and see that these little tidbits of information can tell us about the next installment of the franchise. But be warned, as the rest of this video is diving straight into spoiler territory. So keep on watching at your own discretion, and if you haven't seen Season 1 of Jupiter's Legacy just yet, go on and binge it. We'll definitely be here when you get back. With that being said, let's get right into it. Season 1 of Jupiter's Legacy introduces us to a group of superheroes known as the Union, who was granted power a few decades ago by a mysterious force and has now given birth to a new generation of heroes that seem to have different views on how heroes should operate in the world. As it turns out though, these views weren't so different from those of the original members of the Union, with Skyfox finding the Utopians' code of conduct to be too restrictive. As a result of this difference of opinion, Skyfox split from the Union and became the #1 supervillain in the world. At least that's what we've been told, and we say that with some judgment in our eyes, as the Utopian hasn't turned out to be the most trustworthy of narrators over the duration of the first season. We also come face to face with another supervillain in the form of Blackstar, whom the team first suspect of releasing a clone of himself to wreak havoc while he is locked away in a maximum security prison. As it turns out, however, Blackstar had nothing to do with this, with the Union turning their attention to Skyfox, whose name seems to be written all over the planet. In fact, this appears to be the case from the finale of the season, where both Brainwave and Lady Liberty face off against him with the half-dead mind of a clone, a phrase we honestly never thought we'd get to say out loud. But in a shocking twist, this turns out to be nothing more than a ruse, with Brainwave himself being behind the creation of the clone and manipulation of the younger generations of heroes. And while the villainous nature of Brainwave is definitely teased throughout the journey of the Union prior to being granted their powers, there are definitely a few questions that are left unanswered by the season that will most definitely have to be tackled in Season 2. So let's take a look at these questions and see how they might be answered in the plot of the next installment. Number 1. Why does Walt want to kill Sheldon? In the 1930s storyline of Jupiter's Legacy that we're first introduced to, the people that Brainwave and the Utopian were before becoming the powerful superheroes that they are today. Sheldon and Walt are brothers, after all, who decided to take up employment under the guidance of their father, who just so happens to run one of the best steel mills in the country. But let's just say that the sun doesn't always shine when the family is together, with their father constantly berating Walt while giving Sheldon some pretty clear favorite vibes, and it's from this first reaction that we really come to understand the pent-up hatred that Walt feels towards his brother. This all has its basis in jealousy. He even says to Sheldon towards the end of their journey journey that he resented the fact that their father always treated him like his favorite, always giving him things that he never had to even ask for. This situation is then made worse when Sheldon starts to see images of circles, as well as visions of his then dead father, which led the group to an uninhabited island. Once more, it's Sheldon who's been given the gift of foresight, with Walt just being along for the ride. The final nail in the coffin that seems to trigger something within Walt is the fact that Sheldon then goes on to take the leadership role of the Union in the form of the Utopian. Once more, Walt appears to be shoved to the side with his viewpoint on how their power should be used to better America, being replaced by the code that the Utopian holds above all else. And since the sneaky dealings of Brainwave in the first season seem to be directed at turning of the younger generation against this code, there's no doubt that it is going to play a massive role in an upcoming installment of the franchise. In fact, it looks as if the Paragon has already been turned against his father once and for all, which will most likely result in a number of already influenced younger heroes following suit. And with the group of superheroes and 78% of the American population believing that the code is no longer relevant, we're thinking that season 2 will require another superhero step into the leadership position that the Utopian has held for all these years. And what's the bet that the superhero will be none other than Brainwave, which, let's be honest, was probably his plan all along. Number 2, Brainwave's plan for the United States. When the Union first got together and discovered why they were deemed worthy of the power they had been given, Brainwave chirped in with something sinister that he had passed off as a joke. He coolly stated that the team had been granted their power so that they could rule the world, which appears to be more of a possibility now that it has turned into the dark side. Since Walt has passed the task placed before him, he feels like he deserves a certain amount of power. In fact, he considers himself and superheroes in general to be better than those who actually rule the country. We hear him refer to these rulers as unworthy more than a few times, which states that the Union shall never govern. But as we mentioned earlier, the code is being questioned, giving Brainwave the opportunity to grab onto as much power as he can as soon as season 2 comes to mind. As to what Brainwave will do with the power that he is sure to grab, we turn to his words at the very start of the season. Some would say free will is bringing the world to its knees. It's clear from his prior speeches that Brainwave blames greedy corporations and corrupt politicians for the way that the world is. And while he might say that he wants to work with the current administration to ensure that things get better, there's no doubt that he actually wants to develop a new world order where superheroes are seen as the gods and rulers over the ordinary man. In the world, he sees there's no free will, that is, other than his own. Number 3, the beings behind the powers of the Union. Something else we expect the second installment of the franchise to tackle is the purpose for which the Union were first granted their powers, as well as a possible explanation of the beings that decide to bestow these powers onto them. Since there's going to be a massive amount of contention between Brainwave's worldview and the code held by the Utopian, there's no doubt that the discussion of worthiness is going to come up, and we're hoping that the characters find some concrete evidence as to what their worthiness actually means. Is it possible that these beings judged Brainwave as a villain beforehand, and if so, why did they give him the powers to succeed? We guess we'll just have to wait and see, but what do you think? Feel free to let us know in the comment section down below.